Hey guys, today another conversation with friends. Actually, this is beyond conversation with friends. I really consider this a conversation with a great friend and also somebody that I admire and somebody that I think the globe has admired, not just as a person, but as a musician, as a creative, a true modern day David, somebody who's writing songs that are like capturing the conscious of the world, giving language and giving vocabulary to the world. So it's my pleasure, a great pleasure today to interview and be with Israel. How you doing today, bro?
I'm good, brother. How are you, Otto, man?
I'm good. I love it. This conversation you and I are going to have is something that there's some things in here for me personally, that I've been always wanting to ask. I mean, we've done things, we've made records together, been in church environments, but just to actually live life and seen all that stuff, but just to hear kind of where your headspace is at on writing. I've never been brave enough to ask you. So I feel I'm going to be a little humble. How are you so great? So
that's funny.
So this opportunity is really great. I'm looking forward to it, man. So anyway, we'll just get started.
The pleasure's mine, man.
Huh?
Yeah. I said the pleasure is mine.
Oh, man. Thank you so much. Well, first of all, to start off, congratulations, new baby.
Yes, he's awesome. He's awesome. We're so blessed. It's been a journey for us. It's been a whole lot of prayer. It's been a whole lot of high highs and low lows, exciting news followed by disappointing news, year after year. And it's funny, man, it really has affected worship for me in I'd say in the best way, because it's, I remember growing up and hearing people say, I was angry at God, so I went and yelled at God. And I was like, man, I just can't relate to that at all. And yet when you go through what you go through, and it's like, managing disappointments, there are, I found myself having conversations with God that I thought I'd never have on some, hey, listen, like, can we please bargain this out? Like, don't punish my wife for the crazy stuff I did. And a lot of that is just a really bad, skewed view of God and who he is. And that also really, really has informed how I'm writing lately as well. Just trying to write a little more honestly and realizing that I'd say really since the onset of COVID, people are dealing with real honest and heavy stuff now. And it's not outer court stuff anymore. It's not fluffy stuff. It's rubber meets the road kind of life. And so I'm trying to give some language to that and give some voice to that as well. But a lot of it has been inspired by my own journey.
Well, first of all, I'm about to cry because you and I both know our stories, but sometimes when you get into this church thing, especially as we grew up, you follow the recipe, you do everything everybody tells you to do, and you do things the right way, and then sometimes life hits you, and you're like, whoa, I thought I follow the rules, I follow the recipe the right way, and it doesn't go that, and it affects your faith. And hearing you be that vulnerable. First of all, thank you, because it's not many people that are going to be that honest. I didn't grow up in church where therapy was a thing, where talking about your struggles was a real thing. You just kind of pray through it and kind of grind it out and right. Don't talk about your tough times. But you saying that is meaningful, and saying how it impacts your songwriting. So even as we talk about that, what are songs that kind of stem from that kind of this struggle that you like, now I have worship. I can have a worship song that can come from this.
Okay, so like for me, during the pandemic, like when it really kind of locked down, the first thing is my wife comes in the room and she goes, you should do an Instagram live and, give your take on this. And people want to hear from you. And I was like, nobody wants to hear from me, man. Like everybody's doing a live right now. The internet is collapsing because everybody at 3 p.m., Pacific time is on a live. Like our internet, our Instagram was crashing. And I said, I don't want to do that. They're hearing from a bunch of people. She's like, yeah, they are hearing from a bunch of people, but they want to hear from you. And so I found myself, Otto, actually kind of reverting to hymns and just theologically dense music, because they almost come with their own atmosphere. I don't know how else to put that. Like those songs that have meat on the bone, they bring a certain proprietary oil with them. And so I would find myself sitting at my piano. My wife eventually forced me to go live. And so I started doing Worship Wednesday. And what I found was, to start something with something simple like turn your eyes upon Jesus, or Lord, prepare me to be a sanctuary, or great is thy faithfulness, and these are songs that have unstuck me. Like when I was stuck, these are songs that, to sing peace, peace, wonderful peace. Like it's almost like those kind of songs summon the peace of God in your heart. And because they have sort of a resident anointing connected to them, And so I found myself kind of plugging into those kind of songs. And as a result, the interaction that I was having with people really inspired me to write even more. And what I found was, especially in the Worship Wednesday piece, I was attracting a lot of people. I don't know if this is good or bad, but I was attracting a lot of people who hadn't been to church in a long time and had sort of been so jaded by church, and just, the human frail side of church and leaders. And I've been a leader, and I'm sure I've hurt people, and I've been hurt by leaders as well. And I regret all of that. And yet it is very much a part of our journey. I found myself writing, laments is probably a little too heavy of a word, but like, just let me get a little more honest with the lyric of where I'm at, what I'm feeling, because I'm recognizing that it is resonating with other people as well.
Wow. First of all, two things I got out of that. A good woman can kind of straighten you out and give you give you context on what you should do. But the second thing is, it's interesting, especially both of us having kind of worked in churches and done the commercial music side, but working in a church, there's always that struggle sometimes churches go, we want more hymns. We don't want the new songs. We want more hymns. And you go like, there is something about the hymns. And there's something I've learned to go back and to go, a lot of those songs are written out of struggle.
Absolutely.
And like you said, I love it. It has its own proprietary oil, its own thing there. And it's something that I feel like we definitely need more of. And that's even songs that you've written over the years. I've been we all know, but huge fans of, like Friend of God. Even that concept was provocative for people. But the reality is that he's not mad at us. We don't have a Zeus God throwing down lightning bolts, or Thor but we have a loving God that wants to put on our flesh, take on our disease, our pain, relate with us, take on our humanity so that he can bear those with us and have us come through that. So as you're writing worship, and even segueing through the new album, which this new album is great, dude. Was those Worship Wednesdays, was that sort of the beginning of the new album?
It was. The Worship Wednesday thing really kind of organically led us into Feels Like Home, which we did in the fall of 2020, and that got released February of 21. And then we released something else in April of 21, which is like a volume 2 of that. Yeah. And then we recorded a new record called Project LA, live in Los Angeles. And that came out, I guess, in September of last year. So I found myself going on quite a hiatus from my last live record, which would have been 2015, to doing 3 in 1 year, and now a 4th one here in the next few weeks is coming out. So I have felt this sort of resurgence of inspiration, and of course I've always loved leading worship. That's never been a crisis for me. I realized a while back that I thought I was having a crisis of faith, a few years back, because to your point, like I followed the formula and kind of still crashed. And it was always a strange dynamic to me that those of us who consider ourselves evangelicals are great at winning the lost, but we really struggle with retaining the found. Like you could have somebody on the home team their whole life and let them have a human moment or a crisis or a marriage gone bad or, whatever, or just crashing your life. And I'm not diminishing that by any means. It's been a painful one, but it was amazing how quick people could turn on you, forget you, not only do that, but like spend actual time and energy talking about you to others. And the unfortunate part for me was that it was some of these people were people that I had helped in their own time of crisis. So it was like, wow, man, like I can't get a text back, like nothing. Wow, this is awesome. So when that was happening, I called it a crisis of faith until I realized that it was a crisis of church. And the reason why it was a crisis of church is because I love the local church. Like my whole life has been spent, serving the body of Christ, serving Jesus as a musician, as a worship leader, as a songwriter, but just as a citizen. I love the household of faith. And so when I started really kind of having to take inventory of that in my own life and go, man, like I've so entangled and equated my relationship with God to my attendance at a church building. And once I was able to rightly divide those, and I mean that in the best, most positive way, and just said, I love going to church. That never changed, but I need to also understand, and the pandemic quadrupled down on this for us. You can still have a meaningful, intimate encounter with God without a screen, without lyrics, without the CCLI number, no disrespect. You know what I mean? And it's like, God, I'm inviting you into my living room. And it's, and I had an encounter sort of like that where God was like, I think you've got this a little bit backwards. This is my house. I'm the host. You're the guest. I'll let you live here. I'll let you stay here. But ultimately, I've welcomed you. So stop walking past the piano with your head down every time you walk into this room. Sit at the piano and sing for me. And that was life-changing for me. Like when it became less about who's watching right now, or even the Worship Wednesday thing, when it was just like, I'm just going to sit here and I'm not getting up from this piano. I'm not putting this guitar down until I feel like I've sufficiently experienced what I sat down to experience. And I found that there were so many people, Otto, in the same boat, just going, I still need, like oxygen, I still need this moment in God's presence. So I'm going to get it wherever I can, which is why the album's called Worship Anywhere.
That's beautiful. And then to me, that's, I remember hearing a pastor say, and kind of actually Sammy, my wife and I were talking about this last week about the word, and I'm not a theologian, but the word ecclesia, meaning kind of the idea, the concept. It's definitely a gathering, but the idea of the church, the system. So you are a part of the church, whether you're a musician, doctor, athlete, whatever, you're part of the church. The koinonia, the gathering, that's the part that affected us with COVID. So even the idea of the word and the concept worship anywhere is really, to me, a prophetic thought, because whether it's, and this isn't politics, but if we have to deal with COVID anymore, or if we have to deal with a flu, we're not tethered to, we can still feel the freedom that God is with us. He said that whole thought of that is great. So when the idea, it feels like the idea was just sort of progressionary, like you were kind of like living this out. Was there a real camp?
I was. I did a record back in 2018 called The Road to Damascus, which was kind of a prescient term looking back at it. Like it was slightly prophetic as well, because you've got this whole mask issue. But it was, it was obviously a deeper metaphor than that. All of us sort of walk around with a metaphoric mask. And especially in church, you sort of learn how to keep that one really tight, and kept in the smile formation, just because that's good for business. And I don't mean to sound jaded at all. I'm probably more acutely aware of the power of God's presence more than ever before. And yet I think we put a whole lot of roadblocks in our own way to that experience. But when I put this record out in 18, it sort of came out, fell flat on its face. I loved the content of it, and I worked hard on the content of it. I think people were just expecting more of like an apology album or something, like, hey guys, I messed up, so here's my apology album. And because I didn't do that, and instead just was like, I know the space I'm in. I know what God has done in my life. I know that he's rescued me, and I'm going to worship from that place. When that happened, I remember like certain churches were like, yeah, you can't do an event here, or, whatever. And that's fine. So we found ourselves in like some of the wildest places doing worship nights, whether it was the underground bar in Soho in New York, or what, a club or somebody's house or a backyard or a pier space or whatever. And I realized I'm experiencing all kinds of miracles here in God's presence, and yet we are not in a typical church building or a church setting. We're not even surrounded by people who profess Christ like that, but the message is coming across, the worship is connecting. There's something to this. So I had to undergo my own sort of excavation, and go, all right, I need to get some of the weeds out of my thinking and realize that, yes, you can worship God anywhere. That's really where that started. So to your point, it has been a progression, and I'm really loving where I'm at in this part of the journey of this progression.
Yeah. So it feels like worship anywhere is really a declaration of what God's been doing.
Yeah.
Well, you're featuring, I love the it says Camp New Breed. I just have this question. Was it a real camp? Were you a camp counselor? Did you have the tubes? How did that?
We did all that. We did all that. So, we kind of went into this one. New Breed has normally tried to do some kind of retreat every year. Just refocus. Let's give the vision for the year, blah, blah, blah. But, with COVID and just with life, that had been a few years since that happened. So we really were like, okay, let's go do a retreat. But kind of halfway through the planning of that, I was like, I want to handpick and invite some other, up and coming worship leaders and people that I admire and I want to learn from. And I was shocked, man. They all said, we're there. We'll be there. So Camp New Breed is a real camp in the sense that we went and took over an entire campground in upstate New York. And we're going to do more. We're going to open those up to the public in the future. And I'm excited about it because for me, it was 3.5, 4 days of literal life change for us. And it was like God met us there. I felt like I left there born again. I don't know how else to put that. And everybody, who's been a part of this has said the same. And so, yeah, it was a real camp. I guess I was a camp counselor. I helped wrangle everybody, and we had moments. And it was really important for us to not just rehearse all week. So we did a whole lot of kind of pre-production a month or so in advance, sent everybody the music. Hey, get familiar with this. We're not going to rehearse a lot. We're just going to flow. And that's that way we could have time together that's recreational and fun and just to hang out. And that proved to be the best formula for us. Like we had the best time, and very much a spirit, soul, and body transformational week.
Man, just listening to the record, it definitely has that youthful energy. Was there something in there, not just multicultural, but even age and stage? Were there things that you were pulling in and out from the younger writers?
For sure. I always try and thread this needle carefully because I am the old guy in the room now. You know what I mean? And I love that. I used to be the young guy, and so I'm surrounding myself with young guys, not so that I can remain relevant, but that the New Breed worship part of who we are remains clear and relevant and effective in this sort of new era of what I'm still trying to wrap my mind around. And so, yeah, I have intentionally kept it, or at least kept it multicultural and multi-generational. but I am definitely leaning on some of this younger generation to teach me some things and enable me to kind of get out of the way and just be more of an apostle and more of a father and pushing guys forward. That's really what I want to do.
Well, case in point, the song "Wrong About You," and Joel is featured on. You guys wrote that together.
Yeah.
Can you talk about that song? First of all, the concept as a worship song. You put it "Wrong About You," like, whoa, that's kind of, it makes you think, but it's like "Friend of God." It's one of those kind of songs that it makes your brain. It doesn't let you go on autopilot in worship.
That's right. So Joel and Amanda Cook and I had written a song the day before, and we were in this writing camp, and the directive came in that said, let's write a song that somebody who doesn't know Christianese, somebody who doesn't regularly attend church, doesn't know, what some of our vernacular means, can still experience the presence of God and experience a worship moment. What does that look like? What does that sound like? And so that forced us to kind of write an honest song. And the next day, we weren't in that camp anymore, but we were still in that frame of mind. So they came over to my house in LA and we started writing. Well, we started talking. We started talking for over 2 hours. And it was all about God revealing himself in a way that was so different than how we thought we knew him growing up. And I thought we knew what we knew. And out of it, so the conversation lasted 2+ hours. The song to write it took about 7 minutes, probably. I mean, the verses just boom. And what launched it was Joel saying, man, I am just so glad I was wrong about God. Because if I was right about what I thought about him, life would be a very, very miserable place. But I am in such a place of peace, happiness, love, victory, joy. And it's because I was wrong about him. And I'm happy to say that I was wrong about him. Somebody pointed out to me the other day, because you mentioned friend of God, they said, this feels like a new friend of God. And I said, how? They said it's an up-tempo song, but it is forcing, gently, but it's forcing the congregant, the person singing along, to say something over themselves. Like when I first started doing Friend of God, I couldn't get through the song without crying for probably the first 3 months of leading that song. And this song has that same effect. It's the strangest thing, up tempo, but I'm like, I don't know, man. It's life-giving. And so my buddy was like, this is an old revelation, but it's a new one. I said, well, how old is it? He goes, probably about as old as the disciples that walked with him, in the sense of they got to see his true nature. So by the time we get the word of God and we've interpreted how we think he is, and it's easy enough for man-made construct to say, okay, great, we can control people with this part of the narrative for decades. And again, I always add the caveat here that our pastors and our parents did the very, very best they could with what they had to work with. And I honor them for that. And I thank God for my upbringing. I thank God for every lesson, good and bad. But I have kids, man. I have, as you know, I have young kids, and I want to normalize the goodness of God in their life. I want to normalize he's for you, he's not against you. I want to normalize God is not mad at you, he's madly in love with you. Or as Joel took it a step further in this song, he's like, you're not upset with me. It sets me free. You're not upset with me, but you're obsessed with me. Like that language, which was all spontaneous that night, was like, yeah, this is what we need to hear. And this is what I want on repeat for the next generation, to know this about themselves, that Jesus is obsessed with his relationship with you.
Wow. I don't think there's much more to say. Like literal mic drop. And
but that's where we're at, man. And we need it, because if we try and make a copy of a copy to this next phase of people coming through the kingdom, we're going to lose a generation. The scientific term for making a copy of a copy is you lose a generation of quality. And I don't want to lose this generation. So I'm saying to them, teach me what works for you. Where are you going with this? As long as it's theologically sound and got the scripture around it and has God's hand on it, I want to learn from it, period.
Well, what you said, first of all, just even mentioning back to Road to Damascus, and even just right now for us to even have that concept of like worship anywhere, I really believe this, man. I believe those are prophetic words. And like I'm thankful that you have been willed yourself to like just be a vessel that God can use and speak through. Because that demasking, we have to be more honest. I was talking about that today with my wife. Like, she wants to know what's in my heart. She wants me to be honest. I mean, humans want honesty. They want you to be what's really on your mind. And so when we go through struggles in church, we go through struggles as believers, to be honest about it and say, yes, we are victors. But at the same time, it's also important for us to know that our worship is not tethered to a building, to an organization. God is with us and he's for us. And I love what you said, that we can normalize the goodness of God, normalize that he loves us and for us. So, man, thank you for this time today. Any last thing you want to say before we're done?
I do want to just reiterate that I love the local church, and that's really important. And I love it so much that I care about how we go forward and how we remain viable and powerful to the next generation and to the millennials that live in my house right now. You know what I mean? And to whatever this next generation is called, Generation Z or something. I don't know what they call it anymore, but to them, I want to make sure that they have a really, really keen and clear understanding of who he is and how good he is. And then lastly, I just want to say on behalf of CCLI, I love that we've had a couple decades of relationship there. And I appreciate CCLI for all it's done for the body of Christ as well, and for songwriters everywhere.
Well, brother, you're amazing. And I'm really looking forward to more conversations. And thank you.
Yes, sir.
Today. We'll talk soon.
Always a pleasure. Thanks, Otto.